Good morning, Newman. How are you doing today, man?
I'm great, man. Ready to go. We got week 2 college football. Week 1 was quite the marathon.
Yes,
But
it was. It was non-stop football.
yeah,
It
week 2
was
is
it
a
was it
little
was
more
pretty great.
digestible. A little more digestible.
It is. I mean, everyone's all talking, NFL. Of course, great Thursday night game. Everyone is NFL, NFL, NFL. But if I told you today we have a holy war, you'd be interested, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the cherry on top. We have a bunch of good games, including a Pac-12 Big Ten game to kick things off. But before we
Mhm.
get into it, let's do a little bit of a recap of last week, and then pretty notable Power Five move. So, what do you want to get into first?
Well, let's start with the big news of the week. The Big 12 adding UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, and BYU. Four pretty good football schools. This is definitely targeted towards football. Um, Houston has a pretty good basketball program, as does Cincinnati too. So those will help in those sports also. But the Big 12's got to put themselves back together. So they lose two. They're going to be losing two of their key members in Texas and Oklahoma. So they're bringing in four to compensate for it, make them, trying to stay a big conference here. And I mean, these schools have been pretty relevant the last few years within the ranks, especially even this year. Cincinnati's up there and got a
Much
chance.
much more relevant than the two jerseys we're wearing, Florida State and IU. So no, I mean
Yeah.
these are bigger names. Again, I still think Big 12 is a dying conference. I think this is a last ditch effort. But it is notable. I mean, if you're going to go out and get teams, these are the teams you go and get. I'm surprised by the BYU move. Honestly, I thought BYU would have maybe tried to make a play for a growing Pac-12, and Cincinnati kind of surprises me too because I would have thought they would maybe try to leverage themselves in some of the other bigger conferences because they would have been right up there towards the pecking order of I think both the ACC, the Big 12, or ACC and Big 10 trying to make a play. So those two surprised me a little bit, but either way, good move Big 12. I mean, it's hard to give the Big 12 compliments, but I think you got to here.
So the interesting thing about this is that UCF will actually become the youngest football playing school to join a Power Five program.
Yeah.
The second youngest when that happens. So the current youngest is actually on my head, Florida State, which is crazy to think because Florida State has been a national power for decades, and they're still the youngest Power Five football program. So
Yeah, no, good for them. Good for the Fighting Daniel Tosches. I appreciate it. Want to get into the games?
Well, yeah, let's talk about what happened last week. So Washington got upset by Montana, who is, an FCS program. Washington was ranked, expected to compete in the Pac-12 North, potentially win the Pac-12 and represent the conference in a potential college football playoff. That is a monster loss for them in terms of what it means for the Pac-12 and the whole program, realistically.
Yeah, I mean, for as good as like UCLA has looked on a national stage, like Washington, woof. Like Montana's only relevant if you're playing the NCAA football game. Just big yikes in that game, and like I mentioned when we were prepping for this, it was more the fact they only scored 7 points. Like
Yeah.
there's a notable size and talent and speed difference between FBS and FCS, and you can only put up 7 points. Like that was the bigger concern for me in this game, which is why I have Washington doing not great today.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to make a philosophical change in order to rectify what's going on there. Just taking the air out of the football, allowing a team like that to stay close. Like the thing about it is, if you are the more talented team, you want more plays, right? Because that's more opportunities for big things to happen in your favor. And when you're more talented, that's absolutely what you should be trying to do. Taking the air out of the football and only managing to come up with that 7 points is really disgusting out of Washington.
Yeah. No, I agree. Can we talk about the LSU UCLA game? Like in my mind, this was a game of like two opposite coaches, right? Like I think Chip Kelly is an absolute turd, and I love Edo. Like Edo is so entertaining. He's so passionate. Like he reminds me a lot of the Indiana Hoosier coach Tom Allen, and just the like. It's not fake what Edo does. So I don't know. I was a little stunned by that for sure.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I mean, from watching the game, LSU just got pushed around in the trenches, which is abnormal for an SEC school to have that happen for them versus, a Pac-12 opponent. Usually the Pac-12 is a little bit weaker in the trenches than most of their SEC competition. That's why those games often go the way that they do. But Chip Kelly can absolutely recruit. He can absolutely coach. Edo, we can't really say the same thing for. He can recruit, but he can't really coach. He relies on his coordinators to do what they need to do. And, when there's a talent difference, UCLA is actually talented. They have a lot of upperclassmen in that roster. The transfer from Michigan, Zach Charbonnet, looks really good in that offense. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, has his moments of brilliance as well as his moments of, lackluster play. But him being, an upperclassman at this point now, that should be a little bit more consistency for them. So, UCLA can absolutely make a run at this thing. The Pac-12 South is theirs for the taking if they want it. They just, it's he's probably the best coach in that division. So,
that guy so scummy.
How about Charlotte pulling off their very first Power 5 win over a Duke team that, like this is, it's been bad for Duke for a while, but it might be time.
Yeah, it very well might be time. UNC definitely needed a win. So, anytime Duke, is UNC more mad that they lost or are they more happy Duke lost? I don't know. I don't know what's more important there in UNC.
Yeah, so switching into kind of our next topic there, the big game results that just wound up, like Virginia Tech upsetting UNC. If I'm UNC, I'm scared. This is, year 3 of Mac Brown being the head coach there. Just getting pushed around in the trenches by Virginia Tech is not something that should be happening. They obviously did lose a lot of production off that team from last year, including multiple running backs, multiple receivers, multiple linebackers, etc. But you have your number 1 pick in Sam Howell at quarterback. You got to find a way to do something.
Nope, yeah. I never said that. Revisionist history. Nope, I never said it.
Yeah, so if I'm UNC, I'm pretty worried about the way the rest of the season could go.
Yeah, no, for me, last week was the death of the darlings, right? You had Sam Howell and UNC getting a ton of pub. You had De'Aaron King in Miami getting a ton of pub. You had, the Raging Cajuns getting a ton of pub. And then, of course, you had last year's darling in Indiana. All sort of lay an egg, or all 4 sort of lay an egg. The Cinderella certainly didn't find her slipper last night in a lot of these kind of feel good. I don't want to say up and coming because again, Miami has at least been there before. But I think Virginia Tech was surprising. I guess the Alabama game wasn't surprising as much as
I absolutely had it pretty much going that way on my scorecard. So it's just Alabama is on a different level. Their offensive line, like I said, you're driving trucks through it in the 4th quarter if they want to. They're absolutely going to be able to push you around.
It's like Moses parted the Red Sea.
Right, exactly. So that offensive line is ridiculous, and Miami's not going to stand a chance. In fact, Miami 2 weeks before, so this came out 2 weeks before the game here, they were playing Florida State's war chant at their practice to try to hype up the players. Wait, why are you focused on Florida State when you have a game against Alabama coming up?
Focus.
Yeah, that's Manny Diaz for you. So, we touched on those. Penn State, gets it back in the win column. They had a rough season last year. Come out. It was an ugly game against Wisconsin, but they wound up winning. Your boy Graham Mertz looked awful, as you've been saying. I was a little surprised at that result, but
that really game put football back 40 years. I'd rather not talk about that game. I'm sure a lot of grandpas were probably thrilled and could keep up with that game, but I could not. That was painful on the eyes.
Then we get the night occurrence of that in Georgia and Clemson, where it's literally decided on a pick 6. There was no offensive touchdown scored in that game.
There seemed to be bigger plays in that game, though. I don't know that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I was just more well hydrated, maybe a little well lubricated for that game. But that game just seemed like so much more fun than the Penn State Wisconsin game. I don't know.
Yeah, Georgia and Clemson, their defensive lines and the amount of talent on those teams are ridiculous. So there's definitely more talent on the field. So you're going to see some more interesting big plays and stuff, but it wasn't a great game to watch unless you really like watching a lot of defense. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
somewhere Marcus is out there just, like Mr. Burns, like, excellent.
yeah.
But I think that's definitely a vocal minority there for sure.
Oklahoma nearly blows it against Tulane. And
God, I love the green wave. I love the green
I
wave.
mean, the fact that they, go basically not really being able to practice, not in their home state, all this other stuff going on, and then they come out there and just like Oklahoma seemed to be pulling away at the end of the first half, and they just let them back in the game. I don't know. Spencer Rattler may have lost his Heisman right there in that game.
Yeah, Desmond Ritter didn't though. Like holy cow, did Desmond Ritter look pretty fantastic.
And then, in my opinion, the best game of the weekend was actually that Notre Dame Florida State game. Florida State loses in overtime, but just the up and down, the back and forth. You got the feel good story, Mackenzie Milton. Yeah, I mean,
if they go with Milton all game, they win that. So
there's a lot of other factors. That's the reason why they didn't go with Milton in that game.
If you bring up the refs, I swear to God, I'm ending this stream.
I wasn't going to bring up the refs, but anyway, Florida State looks good, and so we'll see. That UNC game doesn't look so one-sided now. Coming up. All righty.
Do we want to get into this week's picks? Kind of rattle these off.
Yeah, let's go.
So we got Oregon at Ohio State in the horseshoe. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, so I mean, Oregon's biggest deficiency is their secondary, and Ohio State has the best receivers in the country. So give me Ohio State to, topple those 14.5 points.
I'm so dumb here. I'm so dumb, but I didn't like the juice at 14.5. I didn't like -110. That's why I teased this all the way up to -20.5. I think this is going to be a 3 touchdown plus game. This is going to be ugly. Like
it very well might be. The thing is, Oregon tries to play to keep it close, but Ohio State's too explosive for them to be able to do that. And I'm not confident in Oregon's quarterback play for them to be able to stay with them. So, nope. I mean, this could get away from them pretty quick.
Yeah, I think that 14.5 is covered by halftime. But again, if you don't want to get dumb like me, take Ohio State 14.5. It's one of the easier lines all day.
Yeah. Moving on, Pittsburgh -3.5 versus Tennessee. Should be a good environment. I just think that Pitt's a way better football team right now with the senior laden team, Kenny Pickett and all that stuff.
Their transfers look great. That's always a roll of a dice is when you bring in, some Power 5 transfers, have they bought in? How do they mesh? They looked really good. And mostly I wanted to talk about this game because Joe Milton is the worst 5-star quarterback I've ever seen in my life. He wasn't good at Michigan last year. He wasn't good last week. Again, I couldn't believe. I mean, it's probably because it's in Knoxville, why the line's only 3.5. But yeah. I think this is pretty easy money too. Pitt is definitely the better team. I think this is probably anywhere from a 7 to 10 point game.
Yeah. So the one thing that would concern me with this game is if for somehow Tennessee, because they do have some other guys that can play some quarterback down there. If you're going to check transfer and Hooker, that, if Milton winds up getting out of that game, they put Hooker in and he leads like some garbage time, attempt at them getting back into the game and they cover that 3.5. That would be the only thing that scares me here. But yeah, I'm definitely on Pitt in this game. And Joe Milton was just a super raw prospect coming out of high school to begin with. Goes to Michigan, doesn't get developed there, obviously. And I mean, Tennessee's not exactly being thrown into this offense is going to be easy for him.
But only that you will care. Well, probably about 1% of the country will care. Trace Jackson Davis, All-American basketball player at IU. His brother should be starting at Tennessee. His brother's a stud. But anyway, on to Florida versus USF. I know you're taking USF, right?
I mean, the line is 28.5. Did you see what happened to USF last week versus NC State? They lost by 45-0. So I'm going to take Florida to cover the 28.5 points here, which is kind of ridiculous, but it's just,
I hate these big spread games. You make me choose this, so I'm choosing Florida, but there's like some insane stat like lines over 27 points, like the other team covers like 70% of the time. It's a pretty wild stat.
I just don't know if USF is like they haven't scored yet, so I'm waiting for it.
Right. All right. Let's go to an old Big 12 matchup. I thought this was interesting. I missed this kind of before I was doing my research. What do you think about this game? I know you're all over A&M.
Yeah, so I actually typically I'm very against Jimbo covering bigger lines, but they've kind of picked up their pace of play a little bit with Haynes King at quarterback, and Colorado's just not very good in my opinion. So I'm going to take the Aggies to cover the 17 points here.
Haynes King.
It's in Denver instead of at Boulder too. That could be interesting if potentially the air comes into play there. But they're so much more talented.
Yeah, Colorado can't score, and Colorado has dudes. So I think Haynes King rolls. The Aggies have covered in their last 4 road games. So I think that's a significant stat, especially because that plays into Jimbo Fisher. So I absolutely think Texas A&M covers.
Yeah. The next one on this is Ball State Penn State.
I love this game. Can I get a little Ball State covering action in this one? A little chirp. I love chirp to cover in this game, man. I think they're returning 20 starters from a ranked bowl team last year. They're not going to win, but I like this to be kind of a halftime upset alert. I think Penn State pulls away late, but I'm all over chirp in this game.
Yeah, I have them covering the 22.5 points as well here. I mean, to me, Penn State, their offense looked absolutely fucking horrendous last week. And yes, Indiana's defense is good, but like, I still just don't think that they're a good offense right now. So pulling away by 22.5, I just don't see it.
Yeah, no, I was excited for this one. Obviously, I jumped the gun because, again, this was kind of I'm not going to call it an upset, but I think a lot of people probably roll with Penn State coming off a win at Wisconsin. But no, I have Ball State covering here.
Yeah, same. So let's stick here with some Big Ten and Big 12 action in state rivalry here. Probably
the Cy-Hawk Trophy,
one of the best games of the week. Number 10 Iowa plus 4.5 at number 9 Iowa State. Iowa State looked pretty bad last week. They ran a very vanilla scheme. They do get the win, but by a very small margin. Whereas Iowa rolled your squad. So I mean, you've mentioned here, you got here in the notes, Iowa won the last 5 and covered in their last 6 games.
Getting the points in this series.
Yeah, like one, how are they not favored? But getting points, I got to take it.
I think Iowa State's been the most overrated team in college football in the last 12 months. Brock Purdy is not any good. The better running back is on the other side. Iowa looks impressive. I don't think Iowa State throws 2 pick sixes, so I don't see this as a blowout, but I'm absolutely taking Iowa plus money. It's my biggest play of the day. My wife can hear me downstairs, so I'm not going to say how much money I put on this game, but Iowa plus money is dumb, like real dumb.
Yeah.
Real dumb.
Okay, so Texas coming off, beating down Louisiana where their talent just looked like it was too much for Louisiana to handle, gets a pretty bad Arkansas squad. And they're only 6.5 point favorites. I know it's at Arkansas, but that's not enough in my opinion. Arkansas does have the Bryles as the head coach, as the offense coordinator. So, I mean, it's possible for like a backdoor cover on this, but I doubt it. I see Texas is too talented. Bijan Robinson's probably going to have a big day.
Yeah, I see a rough day for Arkansas. No way this game's close. I think I'll probably watch this game for 30 seconds.
Yeah. So Miami is still ranked somehow, coming off of that destruction that they faced at the hands of Alabama. And now they get to host Appalachian State. Appalachian State's plus 9. Give me the points.
It's because you hate Miami, dude. I think Miami has a huge day. I like bounce backs from Miami, UNC, and IU today. I think Miami covers, and I think this game is a blowout. I love App State. They're
So here's the
one of
thing.
my favorite stories. But yeah, I'm
I,
going with
I
Miami
think
on
it's a
this one.
potential look ahead game for Miami, right? Like they just got their asses beat by Alabama, so they're wounded from that. And then they got to go like next week. They have a pretty important game. So to me, it's just a potential look ahead. 9 points is I mean, it's more than a touchdown. App State's a good football team.
It's an awkward number. I hate numbers like, 8.5, 9, 11. Those are always awkward numbers and kind of scare me. But no, I like bounce back by kind of all of the darlings that got humbled last week.
Yeah, I'm going to take the points. App State, give me +9.
All right. Can we get to my upset alert? I know you're all over NC State, but I think the ACC is trash, man. The ACC looks terrible. I think they're a little bit overvalued. So, and I think the SEC is the SEC. So I'm taking Miss State as kind of my minor upset of the day, but upset nonetheless. I have Mississippi State winning at home.
Yeah, not a chance. NC State is a much better football team. They're really, really good in the trenches on both sides of the football. They return a lot of production. Their quarterback is the best quarterback in this game.
They didn't look very good, and the ACC's bad.
He didn't look very good in the 45-0 win over USF. What are you talking about, dude? No. Mississippi State, they're trying to run a scheme that they don't have the players to run. This is going to be a nightmare for them. NC State's going to roll past that 2.5 number, and that is easy winnings for me. I will take it.
Well, again, we're talking about easy winnings. Washington also is bad. I think this game's pretty quick.
I thought you were on the bounce back.
Not Washington, not Montana. I like Michigan here. The only reason it isn't my lock of the day is because of Harbaugh. He with all things are possible with him at the helm. So I like them to cover. I think this game is mostly uninteresting. I think Michigan scores just enough. Their quarterback, Cade McNamara, is pretty meh. I bet they wish they had Charbonnet. Charbonnet looks like a stud for UCLA, but I think Michigan has too many dudes. I mean, if Washington can't beat Montana's dudes, how are they going to beat Michigan's dudes?
Yeah, the thing about Michigan is that they have been recruiting at a pretty elite level still. So that just the talent advantage alone against Washington, plus getting them at home, Washington coming off of that really bad loss. Yeah, this is very much so Michigan's game to give away. So I'm going to have them cover that 7 points.
Yep. UNC bounce back, huge.
Yeah, so huge. Georgia State played without a lot of key starters in their previous game. UNC did not look good. They're, like I said, their issues in the trenches. I don't really like it when teams have issues in the trenches. So give me Georgia State to cover 25.5.
Oh man,
too big a number, man.
It is. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna probably be kicking myself when I look at this USF Georgia State lines, but no, I'm taking both teams to get the big number.
All right, so moving on to the SEC here, Missouri versus Kentucky. Kentucky is a 5-point favorite. They eviscerate ULM last week, but what could be expected? The best Penn State quarterback that was on the roster last year is now playing for Kentucky, and Will Levis.
Nice.
Do you think that Missouri's actually bad, or is Kentucky good? Like, what do you got going on here?
I think Kentucky's good. It's my lock of the day.
Okay, so very.
I'm saying it as quiet as possible.
Yeah,
I'm saying it because for me to compliment Kentucky literally hurts my soul, but I do think Kentucky is going to put one of those like shockingly good SEC seasons together. I think Kentucky is good, and I think Missouri is crap.
I've been saying it for a while. Kentucky's the second best team in the East behind Georgia. I think that this is easy money here. Kentucky at home versus Missouri -5. Yeah, give me that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Holy War time. Sometimes there's so many rivalries that I forget that there's some badass rivalry trophies. Like, I was like doing my prep for this. I was like, Holy War? Holy cow, that is freaking awesome. And then I realized how one-sided this is because for some reason I thought BYU has been good. But the Utah won 9 straight. Like that's not really a rivalry.
They didn't play last year. That was probably the team that BYU had that could actually win it. But they lose all those guys to the NFL. Zach Wilson being the biggest name of the bunch. This is, I mean, I like Utah here. I think that they're a better team.
I mean, 7 points is a pretty small number. I think BYU will be reading the Book of Mormon before this one's over because it'll be out of hand.
Yeah. And then we've got, rounding it out, the last game of the day, Stanford at number 14 USC. USC's giving them 17 points. Stanford looks pretty bad. They have not been recruiting at the level that they used to. Back in Harbaugh days, in the early days of David Shaw, they've been really affected and hurt by the early signing day period. And USC is just an ultra talented team and brand. They're running that air raid system. Stanford's trying to take the air out of the ball. This could get away from them. 17 points. I'm on the Trojans.
Yeah, Stanford's going to need some protection here. I love USC's quarterback. I think he's definitely a quarterback to watch.
Keaton Slovis.
Yeah, I like him. I think he fits that offense perfectly. They're super fun to watch. This is Pac-12 after dark written all over it. If you want to see USC, who I think is going to probably pretty good. I can't wait for the USC UCLA game later this year. I think it's going to be wonderful. USC I think covers this easy. This game's in the 20s, like 20-point spread probably. I didn't tease it up because I can only really do that once a week. I can only get real dumb. I think USC 17 is a pretty safe spread.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I see it that way as well. Florida State's got a big game against Jacksonville State, getting in the win column here. Where's Indiana got?
Indiana has the Fighting Vandals of Idaho, who willingly decided to no longer be part of the FBS. So the line's like 29.5. Who knows? I sold my tickets. I listened to a fellow sports memery, Trevor, and sell tickets when you can sell tickets. So I won't be there in person. I'll be there next week when IU takes on Cincinnati and is going to shock the world. But
we'll see about that.
But that's for next time. Newman, always awesome talking to you. Don't get too excited for NFL because there's a great day of college football. And be sure to check in tomorrow. We're going to do the same thing, similar show with Marcus and JC and I. Everyone, have a great day. Later, Newman.
Go Notre.